All right, we're live here, and I forgot to set my intro video, so let's do that first. All right, welcome back. It's a Wednesday live stream. We're doing these every week, if we can, when we can, to get ready for the election on November 3rd. My name is Kasie Whitener. I'm running for U.S. Senate here in South Carolina. I'm the Libertarian candidate, and this set of the series is called Money Doesn't Grow on Trees. It's where we're going to focus on the primary issue for me in this campaign, which is the national debt. Every issue is a debt issue. And so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how the money works at the highest possible levels of the federal government, also how that affects what's happening with us in our day-to-day life here in South Carolina. So first things first, though, all of our episodes begin with a campaign update. So where are we in the campaign? Yesterday, I went to Charleston, South Carolina, and spent the day in Charleston. And I want to thank the folks that welcomed me there to spend a little bit of time with them. I got a chance to have lunch with a friend from the South Carolina Writers Association, a guy named Roger Jones. He's got a great book called The Final Victory. If you haven't picked it up, hit Amazon, take a look at it. It's about a group of dragon boat rowers that are all cancer survivors. It's really a great book, so get a chance to do that. Roger Jones, The Final Victory. Anyway, I got to have lunch with him. It was wonderful, and we spent a little time together talking about the campaign, of course, since I've kind of moved away from my writing full time and moving toward campaigning. I say full time over the summer. This is the full time gig over the summer. So it was fun to get to see Roger Jones, and then got a chance to catch up with Nancy Conwell, who used to work with the Department of Commerce here in Columbia, and that's how I first met her. She is a business coach, so that was a lot of fun to get to catch up with her. She's now a freelance business coach in the Charleston area and helping entrepreneurs get their businesses up and going. Y'all know I love my entrepreneurs, so it was fun to get to see Nancy. She and I also have some Northern Virginia roots, and so we got to share some conversation around Northern Virginia as well. And then last but not least, I visited with my friends at Shaw Circle, and these are young people who have started their own investment firm. They have this really cutting edge technology that makes predictions and makes suggestions for how funds should be investing in the market. It's very complicated that I don't fully understand, but I do get software to an extent. So there was a good chance for us to catch up on that. But these are young people that used to be in my classes at the Darla Moore School of Business, and it was a great chance to reconnect with them. I hadn't seen their office space or caught up with them for a while, so it was fun to see Shaw Circle. And then the final thing I did last night, and this is really the most important thing to talk about, is the South Carolina Forum, which is organizing citizens to create a legislative agenda for the South Carolina General Assembly next year. The SC Forum had a community conversation in Charleston. They had one in Columbia, and I missed it because I was at the beach for 2 weeks. So I got a chance to go to Charleston and do the one in Charleston instead, which was really fun. I met a Democrat who's running for House District 105. I think he said, maybe 102 down there. He's a cool dude. I got to see my friend Dennis Fossilitis, who is the founder of the South Carolina Emerging Tech Association. Of course, my campaign manager, Sarah Ballard, she's a part of the forum effort, so she was there too. Jennifer, Erica, the whole crowd. It was fun to get to see everybody there and to be in Charleston for that. It was a cool roundtable event where we talked about the issues that are facing South Carolinians and the things that we think the legislators should be focusing on in the next legislative session. And it's sort of moving the project forward. So the project started with this input from about 180,000 people who went to the website. Now it's into these community conversations where we're trying to flesh out what we think the responses should be. And then there'll be a big forum in Columbia where they try to get folks. It's actually by lottery to get invited to that. You can just go to the SC Forum and find and get into the lottery to be selected for that. But that's where they're actually going to write the positions and the legislation that they're looking for. But anyway, and then they'll give it to the people that get elected on November 3rd. And hope that they'll advance it once they get into the State House in January, as a new session starts in January. So that was a lot of fun. Great to participate in that. As candidates, there were a number of us who were there as candidates. We were not allowed to do any campaigning at all, which was okay. Interesting, but okay. But I had my name tag on, and so people knew I was running for U.S. Senate. And so there were a number of people that I interacted with that asked me for things like business cards and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't call it campaigning. I would say it was networking in the best possible way, which brings me to our special guest for tonight, and somebody who I met through one of my favorite networking opportunities. I shared with you guys last week that I went to 1 Million Cups in Myrtle Beach the 2 weeks that I was there. And usually over the summer, because I'm not teaching on Wednesdays, I'm able to hit 1 Million Cups here in Columbia, which is it's my original chapter. It's my home chapter, I would call it. And their chapter co-organizer, Tara Morawski, is here with me tonight. So that's going to be a lot of fun to chat with her. But before we get to that, I have a campaign shout out for my campaign superstar this week, the person who has been really crushing it for the campaign this week. And I'm going to give a shout out to Casey Crow. He is my Facebook manager, and he is out there building a hype group. And this is going to be your call to action, all of my digital friends. When you get back to when we're all done here, I want you to go to Facebook and join the hype group so that whenever Casey posts something in there, he'll tell you, hey, this is where they're talking about the U.S. Senate race. And then you're supposed to go to that place and promote me as a candidate in those spaces. So all that to say, Casey Crow, the campaign workhorse for the week. So thanks for your efforts on Facebook, Casey. All right, now welcome into the studio, Tara Morawski. Tara, so there's a couple of pieces here, because the first is, of course, you're a 1 Million Cups co-organizer. So I do want to talk about 1 Million Cups, but then you also brought Harcourts Carolinas to life here in Columbia, which is your entrepreneurial effort. And it is a revision of what real estate could look like. It's a different kind of real estate business model. So I want to talk about that. And that's going to lead us into talking about this housing bill that just got passed, bipartisan passed yesterday. And then there was some shenanigans around whether or not President Trump was going to sign it. And we can talk about that when we get to it. But first, 1 Million Cups. So tell the people about 1 Million Cups and what a benefit it is to the community, and then what it does for you and building your business.
So I moved here. I'm a transplant from Southern California. And so 1 Million Cups was actually one of the very first places I went to meet people in the Columbia area. What I loved about it is I didn't know what it was. I thought I was just coming to, like you said, a networking event. But in essence, what it is it is a place for entrepreneurs to come and talk about their journey. So it's the good, the bad, the ugly, what that looked like, what they've done, how they got there. And that was just such an interesting take on entrepreneurial life, because you don't realize how lonely it can be being even a solo entrepreneur. And so having a room with people trying to build something, I loved it. And after the first couple of meetings, I just kept coming back. And I fell into an organizer role 2 years ago, because they were revamping some things, and I could not be not a part of it.
Right. Well, and so 1 Million Cups for years. I mean, the group right before me were the first organizers, Greg Hilton and Agatha Jasinski, that crowd. And then I got there and I was like, man, these are the cool kids. Like, I want to be with the cool kids, which is a lot of fun. And then, so my group and me and Thaddeus Jones and a few of us were organizers at the same time. And then COVID kind of shut it down, although they were doing some live streams, and Shanice Cleckley was heavily involved at that time. And they were doing some live streams in as much as they could. But, going to Facebook live streams while everybody was at home, the vibe of the 1 Million Cups experience wasn't quite rocking it at that point. But you guys have really brought it back in a big way at the incubator on Laurel Street in Columbia. And it's a fun crowd. It's still a fun crowd. It's still got some of the usual suspects, Tom Ledbetter and Derek. And there's still some of the folks that have been hanging around that crowd for, a decade or more. But it's a cool group to be part of.
It's a great group to be proud of. I'm always so proud to be affiliated with them, and I've loved it. I loved it. Cool kids is a good way to describe it. Yes.
If you have a business and you are wondering about and I will say this too, I met a business owner in Myrtle Beach who she's struggling. Her business is about to close down. And I said to her, I was like, why have you not been going to 1 Million Cups? And I brought her there like that next Wednesday. And she was like, where has this been? And I was like, well, it's not going to rescue you here at the end of your business. It's not, the shot in the arm that you need necessarily. But if you are a business owner and you're starting to feel that sense of drift or isolation, or you're thinking like, maybe business ownership isn't for me or whatever, just give 1 Million Cups a chance, because if you get in there one time, you'll start to realize other people have been through that before and they came out of it on the other side, building their successful businesses. So it's a great sort of weekly therapy session, if you will.
Oh, 100%. It describes it perfectly. Yes, it totally is. It's a room with
Your
people
group
who
therapy.
get it. Yes, they
Yes.
get it. Yes.
Yes,
for sure.
group therapy for entrepreneurs. All right, so you got into that because you were building Harcourts Carolinas, which
Yeah.
is a business model in the real estate market. Tell people about that business and how different it is comparatively.
Sure. So Harcourts itself, we're an international company. We started in New Zealand in 1889. And the interesting thing is the way they sell real estate in that part of the world is it's done by auction. You don't put price tags on homes. You don't tell people what homes are worth because the market dictates that through the auction process. So
Right.
in the US, when we think of auction, we think of distressed, we think of foreclosure. We have a very different view of it. So when the model was brought to North America, and I think it was in 2014, it was just a very unusual way to sell real estate. And it took a good couple of years because we started on the West Coast in Southern California. It took a couple of years for people to kind of wrap their head around it. And now we're up and down the West Coast and into Canada, Mexico, the Northeast, because now we're giving homeowners two ways to sell your home, which they've never had before historically.
Right.
So I brought the model here in 2022, and I'm the only brokerage in the state and really the Northeast that is able to help homeowners sell their homes, either the traditional model or with the auction model, which frankly, I believe is just better genuinely. So that's what makes us different. And then anytime you bring a new idea, people have always, well, that's not going to work here. And, no, good, pat me on the head and send me on my way. And it's okay. It just takes a minute, but now my partner from California has followed me. He's here building the business, and people are seeing this is a better way to sell a home. And we're converting a lot of these listings because it's just so it's taken a minute, but people are warming up to it, and it's proving to be successful here as well.
What are some of the advantages of going the auction route as opposed to when we think of traditionally listing a home, it is, that we have an appraisal done and then we, market, we look at, what are all the comparable prices in our area. We put a price out there. This is the one that we want. And then it'll be, people will come and they'll make an offer and it'll negotiate down. And this is what we actually end up getting for it or whatever. And depending on your sense of urgency about whether or not you want to sell and when you have to sell. And then here we've got a lot of military families, they're moving away. And so they've got to get out of that house as quickly as possible. So that sense of urgency sometimes ends up and they say things like real estate agents will leave their own house on the market for 2 weeks longer than they'll leave your house on the market, right? Things like that, where it's there's the sense of urgency is there to turn it over and make a sale. So what are some of the advantages of going the opposite direction, which would be, hey, here's my house. What do you guys want to pay for it? And asking the auction to create the value proposition.
Yes. So I think, and you've just said it best, it's a sense of urgency to get something sold. And I'm glad you brought up our military families because, during PCS season, you have to sell a home. You may have to sell your home. When you list it traditionally, there is no end date. You can sell that home in a couple of weeks. You can sell that home in 6 to 10 months. You don't know. Granted, if you price things pretty accurately, you can move things quickly, but that really is just a guess. Where with our auction model, we will market a home, if you will, for 4 to 6 weeks, with the end date being, let's say, July 16th. So our homeowners know we will provide them with a result by that day. So that is probably the biggest advantage to this model is you will know when the home will sell. And at that time too, you can say, great, all of our sellers have a non-disclosed reserve price. So they are not forced to sell. So within that campaign, you'll know what someone is willing to pay for your home, if you're willing to accept it, sell it, or keep it, and at least you'll know what the value is, where right now, no one knows. They're not getting offers. It's not moving. It's just sitting and sitting and sitting. So that's me.
And
probably the biggest benefit.
Yeah, and I was just saying, a lot of times it's sitting because people are waiting for the price to come down,
Oh, yes,
right? They're
always.
taking a look at it and they think like, well, that's priced a little bit higher than number one, higher than I want to spend. But
Yes,
also, if I give it 2 weeks, the price will come down, right? And so, if savvy home buyers know that, but in this case, we're getting that reverse piece where it's like, you tell
yes.
us what you're willing to pay, and if somebody else wants to outbid you, then you may find that you lost the house just because you weren't willing to pay enough.
Oh, you've touched on, well, you should, I'm letting you get your license, have you part of the auction team. You touched on two very, I'm so excited. You touched on 2 points. One is, yes, people are so focused on what you want for your home. They're going to do everything not to give that to you. So they're going to find every reason why Kasie should not get her house for that price, or I will not pay her for that price. Where when we take away what we're asking and instead introduce a bidding to start from, now I don't know what they want for their home, so now I'm not focused on just not giving them that. Now I'm coming into the property, I'm figuring out, well, this, and now I'm coming at it with a different perspective. The other thing that I love that you touched on, let's see, you talked about, remind me again, you had that other great point.
Just to say that they're going to be thinking about what do I think it's worth, and and I might get outbid.
Oh, the outbid. Here's what I love also about the auction. Let's say you do get into the auction process, you register to bid, the transparency. One of the most frustrating things when I represent a buyer and we get into, say, a bidding war, we don't know what the other buyers are willing to give. And a snarky agent loves to tell you, well, give us your best and final. Well, we know what our best and final is, but I don't know what their best and finals are. So people tend to be very afraid they don't want to overspend. So they hold on to that money, where when we do get them in the auction arena and you see the other buyer has gone up by, say, $2,500. Well, we can do $5. We go up another $5. So the transparency. So our sellers, they just sit back and just watch it go, because and FOMO and competitive. We play on a lot of that with the buyers, and buyers too. They get nervous. I don't want to get in on that. That's too scary. I don't. Well, then write the seller an offer now. You can stop the auction. Or my goodness, I would rather be in an arena and see what my competition is willing to pay than the unknown. So you touched on all three of the most beautiful parts of the process. Thank you.
So what I love about this conversation, because it's going to lead directly into this conversation about this real estate bill, this housing bill, and everybody's got some concerns about affordability. And this particular bill is addressing two big things that I think are like red herrings. The one big thing is the institutional investors. So the people that are, the investment firms that are buying up supposedly, thousands of homes in a particular market. And then, and somehow that's being seen as unfair, even though if they buy all these homes, they have to then turn around and sell those homes. So they're still going to sell those homes at whatever the market rate is. You know what I mean? It's not like there's not, they can't, and now they're saying that like these institutional investors in some locations, it's like 20% of the housing market. And is there an artificial inflation of the house prices because the institutional investors are buying them? Like that, the math isn't mathing for me there. It seems like it's not really the problem. And in the article that I read, it said that it's like less than 1% of the overall housing market in the country is owned by institutional investors. So like, this is a bill that addresses a problem that's not really a problem. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. What always bothers me, is they try to find a blanket, one thing will fix all and cover and help everybody. And that's what frustrates me about real estate is not a blanket, resolution to a problem.
Right.
It's so hyper focused. I mean, the Columbia market is so different than many of the markets across the US. What might work somewhere else is not going to work here. And it even is so hyper local that what might work in Columbia is not what's working in Charleston. So it's frustrating because they think, well, this will fix it. And it's not here. That's not going to fix that here. And the people here are the people that I'm helping. So
Right.
yes.
And one of the major sponsors of this is Tim Scott. And a part of our regular segment on this show is the shill of the week, which is the person who's promoting something that they're probably going to benefit from. And I did
Mhm.
go trying to find how is he benefiting from this. I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure it's there somewhere in some kind of logs of where the donations are coming from. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know. But Tim Scott wins our shill of the week on this because this particular piece, the institutional investors piece, is not relevant to South Carolina. It doesn't seem to be the issue in the market in South Carolina for the most part. The second piece of this that I thought was really that is disconcerting for me is that it talks about there was I made a note of it. Let me pull up my note. There's another part of this that it just didn't seem to be supply side. Okay, so a lot of times our federal solutions are addressing the demand side when they need to be addressing the supply side. And so
Right.
in this case, one of the things the bill does try to do is remove some of the oppressive regulations and things like that that make it very difficult to build a house. So like one of the statistics I saw was that in California, the cost of a house before they ever even break ground is $137,000 just for like permits and fees and things
Yeah.
like that. And I
Yeah.
also saw that they built more houses in the Dallas Fort Worth area last year than in the entire state of California. So when we look at like the supply side problem, this legislation does try to address the regulations piece, but it doesn't necessarily address why we're not building more houses,
Right.
why there
Right.
aren't more houses coming online. And once again, you said before, that's not really the issue in the Columbia market. Is supply a problem for us?
Absolutely not. Since I've opened our brokerage here, and I was looking back because I keep a lot of data as the broker, to understand where the market is and the market trends. You have to follow the data. And just to give
Sure.
you a sample, I mean, in late June we had just over 600 active listings. Well, June
Mm-hmm.
now, and that was 2023. June of 2026, we have now over 1,800 homes active on the market. So here locally in the Columbia area, we are not experiencing a supply issue. We have a supply. Our
Right.
issue is we do not have, it's an affordability issue. We just,
Right.
with the rates that they're where they are, our prices here locally have gone up 30 to 40%, since post-COVID. So it's
Right.
it's more of our folks here, there are homes out there. It's just they can't afford to buy them, is what we're seeing locally.
And there's two pieces to that, right? Like there's the first piece is the down payment, the
Yes.
ability to be able to save money for a down payment or
Correct.
to extract some kind of, whether it's cashing out your 401k or finding that like big chunk of down payment to be able to do that. Like a lot of homeowners come into this conversation, they don't even have the
No.
beginnings of this conversation, which is that down payment. And because of inflation, we're seeing that it's hard to save for
Yes.
a down payment because our dollar's not going quite as far. So that's a big piece of the problem. And then the other
Yes.
half of the problem is that the cost of these homes is higher, right?
Yes.
The value of the house is higher. And this, I was reading a book called Abundance by a guy named Ezra Klein, and he talks about how in the United States, a lot of us, our wealth, our personal wealth is tied up in our home. So
Yes.
when we go to sell our home, we don't want to undersell. We need that money. And especially
Yes.
if you're a retired couple and you're moving into a smaller house, like this
Yes.
might be our nest egg, right? So we want to have the highest possible value. The way to get that highest possible value is to reduce the inventory, right? Like to
Yes.
make it harder for people to buy homes. And so we've seen a lot of like local ordinances they call them NIMBY ordinances, the not in my backyard, that are reducing, we don't want them to build multifamily homes. You have to have, a driveway. There has to be like all these kinds of ordinances that are making it difficult on the supply side. Granted, not in Columbia necessarily, but that's making the price of our houses go up, right? The value of our homes go up. But the reasonable return on investment for a house after you buy it and then you turn around and sell it is like 3.5% to 5%, right? Like it
Yeah.
shouldn't be that my house is twice the value of what I paid for it. Like
Right.
that's outrageous. It shouldn't be
Yes.
that way. So
No.
why do when you think of that, like the mentality of the sellers, do they seem to come in with this mentality? Like I have to get, 75% more than what I paid for it?
Well, so they're coming off of a seller's market, and the market
Hmm.
3, 4, 5 years ago in COVID, it was not normal. Homes were
Hmm.
selling themselves in a matter of hours, depending on where you
Hmm.
are. So you
Sure.
have people who, a normal market, I think average days on market right now is 45 days here in Columbia. So when I
Hmm.
have a seller and they're like, Tara, it's been 2 weeks. How come I haven't sold? How come I haven't sold? I have
Right.
to have a conversation with them like that's not normal. It takes
Right.
at least a month or so.
Sure.
The other
Sure.
the other component is the reason I think people are so anxious over needing every penny out of their home is because a majority of them refinanced in
Hmm.
23, 21, 20, and they're sitting with these again not normal rates of 2 3/4, 3 1/4. And so
Hmm.
now that they're looking at, okay, now I need to upsize or what have you, now they want to buy something that is more expensive and is
Hmm.
going to cost them more money. Well, that
Yep.
also gives them an anxious and they want to pull every penny out. So it's a component of that we're really trying to just kind of get people to work through.
And you brought up the interest rates, because that's the other piece
Yes,
of that that's driving that too, is the third component is the interest rates. And so
100%.
what's interesting to me is that this legislation that just passed, which is supposed to be the Housing Affordability Act or whatever, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't address any of those things.
none of
It
it.
doesn't address the interest rates. It doesn't
Nope,
address people not being able to save. It
nope.
doesn't address this anxiety related to I have to get everything out of my house as I possibly can.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a there, I feel like when they put forward legislation, they go, everybody signed it. I'm like,
No,
it must not do anything. I
no,
mean, like,
no.
it must just be a nothing burger, because there's no way you got everybody to sign something that actually does things. If it did, that might be a challenge. You would
Agreed.
probably have a little bit of a challenge.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. So we do have a comment from Facebook. The markets and home sellers want and need the profit, but everyone else looking to purchase a home can't afford the price of the listings. Not to mention the quality of those new houses are far worse than how
Oh,
they
yeah.
were built in the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. Yeah, it is very much a multifaceted problem. So that begs the question: is it possible to write federal level legislation that would solve this multifaceted problem across all of these very diverse markets? And I'm going to say no. I don't think it is.
It's not. It's too hyper focused. It's just you can't. It's not a one thing. It's not a one fixes all. You just absolutely cannot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. All right. So I enjoy having people come on here and just agree with me, which is wonderful.
I wasn't going to come in here and disagree with you, but you're hitting all the marks tonight, Kate. I have nothing that I'm like, yeah, you're right. And this bill too, as far as in residential real estate here locally, we're aware of it. We're concerned about it. We've read up on it. We know about it, but it doesn't help my buyers or sellers right now. So it's
Right.
just it's moot. I can't. Thank you and no thank
Yeah.
you. I can't do anything with it.
And we haven't even gotten into the possibility of subsidies, because I'm sure there's something in there that's trying to pay the banks to make loans. I'm sure. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen that with Freddie Mac Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, the way
Mhm.
the Treasury comes in and scoops the banks' bad loans up, and the taxpayers end up paying for people who couldn't make their mortgage payments. And I mean, it's just, so to me, the nothing burger is there's a lot to talk about. We did this thing. I don't know that the thing is going to be the solution they're claiming it's going to be.
I agree with you. Yes.
All right. Well, we will stay tuned and try to figure that out. Tara, people can find you at 1 Million Cups on Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
my tenure has ended July 1st. I know.
Oh,
I know. I put in my 2 years, and now I've handed the baton to Al Mosley, who is he's
good.
going to fill my shoes perfectly. So, but
That's
I
as
will.
it should be.
Yeah, I'm going to be a part of it. They're never going to shake me loose. I will be there in attendance all the time. But me as the head, no, I'm past that on. I've retired.
Well, good for you. And I'm glad you were able to find a group where you can make a lot of friends. And I
Yes.
hope that the friends that you've built here in Columbia have made you feel welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Love it.
I
Yeah.
understand being a recovering Californian is not easy, but there is sweet tea to make it easier for you.
Oh yeah.
So there you go.
Oh, like you go to college and you put on the freshman 15. I've put on the Southern 15 because I have been eating like a Southerner since I moved here. It's at least 30 pounds of shrimp and grits and fried and hush puppies and oh no, I'm loving. I am loving all of it. Yes.
There you go. Sweet tea, fried chicken, and biscuits. Welcome to South Carolina.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Tara, so much. I appreciate you. I'll catch up with you sometime next week.
I'll see you
Have a great
soon.
day.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. So real quick on this housing bill, we know that President Trump had sort of put off whether or not he was going to sign it. He's probably going to sign it. He was trying to get them to pass the Save America Act in coordination with this. There's a lot of sort of political shenanigans going around about this, but just be aware that there is a housing bill out there that has been passed. Bicameral legislation is what they're calling it. Both sides of Congress have agreed to pass this. And as you heard Tara say, and we're just two opinions. You can obviously go and read some more about it yourself and form your own opinions. I would love that. Comment on YouTube, comment on Facebook. Let me know what you think of it. What do you think the good things are about it? What do you think the challenging things are about it? But that's all about the housing affordability bill. Right now, out on the blog is "We Can't Tax Our Way Out of This." That is the most recent blog for you guys. And I mentioned it last week. It is about the national debt. That is what this entire series of live streams is about. That's why it is "Money Doesn't Grow on Trees" as the topic of the live streams, because I want to talk about this national debt and the affordability problem. Everybody keeps calling it the affordability crisis. This is a debt crisis. This is because we owe so much money. When our government owes as much money as it does, everything gets more expensive. And you heard Tara say that those housing interest rates are higher for mortgages. That's because borrowing money is more expensive when you owe a lot of money, which we do here in the United States. So we've got to take on the national debt. We've got to have real conversations about that. And we have to have some real solutions for it as well. So the blog is called "We Can't Tax Our Way Out of This." It talks a little bit about what some of the options are for us to be able to get out of this, what seems to be a never-ending debt. But that's not your go-to for this week. Your job this week, your go-to action is to go to Facebook and get into the hype group. So it is facebook.com/groups/Kasie Whitener hype group. But you can go find the Kasie Whitener hype group on Facebook and get in there. And anytime Casey Crow posts something, he's my Facebook dude. Casey just joined the live stream, but you got our campaign person of the week. So good job, Casey Crow, for building that hype group up and sending people out. So get into the hype group. Anytime there's a mention of the U.S. Senate race for South Carolina, anywhere on Facebook, Casey's going to put it in that group and send all of you guys over there to start saying, hey, don't forget to vote for Kasie Whitener. And this is how we're building that grassroots effort to get name recognition, which is one of the big pillars of our campaign. We need that name recognition. The other thing we need, of course, is money. So if you have an opportunity to support the campaign in that way, go out to the website, find the donation link, click on that. Y'all know I don't like to come out here with my cup in my hand begging for cash, but it's time to start raising money to look like a viable campaign so that we can make it into the polls, so that we can gain media coverage, so that we can buy media coverage. There's lots of things we need to do, and we need money to be able to do it. So go out there to CaseySouthCarolina.com. Find that donate link and give us what you can. Monthly donors are very valuable to us because we can predict next month what we're going to be bringing in when we have a monthly donor subscribed. Okay, that's what I have for you guys. I'm going to go through and make sure we hit the big conversation. We hit the call to action. We're good to go here. That's the end of our live stream for this week, right on time, right at 7:35. Thank you again to Tara Morawski for being with us, and I will see y'all next week. Oh, one more thing. Saturday, Hampton, South Carolina, Watermelon Festival, including a parade. Y'all, you know I love a parade. So we put in our parade application. We'll be in the parade for the Watermelon Festival in Hampton, South Carolina on Saturday. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll see you soon.